My entitled neighbors abandon their dog when they move out, leaving him tied up in their backyard with just a bowl of water and some food to hold him over. But after I take the dog in and get him healthy and living a good life, these neighbors come back 6 months later, demanding that I give their dog back, while also spreading the lie around the neighborhood that I actually stole the dog. So now I'm super frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood and I've always loved animals. About 6 months ago, my next door neighbors, who we will call Mark and Julie for the sake of the story, moved out of their house and completely abandoned their dog by the name of Buddy. They didn't say a word about it. They just left him tied up in the backyard with a bag of food and water. Now, when I realized what had happened, I was furious. Who leaves a dog behind like that? I immediately took Buddy in and made sure that he was safe and fed. Over the next few days, I tried contacting Mark and Julie to find out what was going on, but they ignored all of my calls and text messages. So I figured that they didn't care and had intentionally left Buddy behind. I ended up deciding to keep him, and Buddy is the sweetest dog I've ever met, and he quickly became a huge part of my life. I took him to the vet, he ended up getting vaccinated, and I made sure that he was healthy. It's been 6 months, and he's like family to me now. He is happy, healthy, and honestly living his best life. Then, last week, Mark randomly showed up at my door saying that they wanted Buddy back. Apparently, they had some personal issues and had to leave town quickly, but now that things had settled, they are ready to bring him back home. And I was shocked. I told Mark that there was no way I was giving Buddy back, especially after they abandoned him for 6 months without any contact. When I said that, Mark got really defensive, saying that Buddy was their dog, and apparently I had stolen him. He accused me of taking advantage of their situation and guilt-tripped me by saying that he and Julie had just been going through a tough time and needed a fresh start. He claimed that Buddy was better off with them since he is their dog and they had raised him for years. I told him straight up that Buddy was staying with me. If they cared about him so much, they wouldn't have left him behind like he was nothing. I reminded him that I had spent time and money taking care of Buddy when they couldn't be bothered to even let me know what was going on. I told him that Buddy has a new home now and that I wasn't about to uproot him just because they suddenly decided that they wanted to play the responsible pet owners again. Well, Mark and Julie are furious now. They've been around the neighborhood telling people that I stole their dog and that I'm a terrible person for not giving them back. Also, for your information, they're living at a hotel and will leave sometime this week. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by keeping Buddy, but honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This is insane behavior, and I can't believe that Mark and Julie are coming back like this. For starters, it really needs to be said that yes, they did abandon their dog. They left him in their backyard tied up with only a bag of food and a bowl of water. Like seriously, what is going on right now? They're not only not good pet owners, but they're also not good people at all. Like if you can't take care of your dog and you're going through a rough time in your life, then give the dog a new home. Don't just tie it up in the back of the yard to eventually pass away, because that dog would never last. That is insane behavior. That is not okay. It's also incredibly crazy to me that Mark's like, oh, you stole my dog. You took my dog away from me and I want it back. I deserve to have it. And it's like, no, you don't. You deserve to go to jail for neglecting your dog, for literally abandoning it in the back of the yard. Because in my opinion, I think the original poster is absolutely entitled to take care of this dog. They've gone to the vet, they've gotten vaccinations, and they've taken the time to rehome the dog and get it acclimated to a new environment. For Mark and Julie to step in and be like, okay, we're gonna take our dog back now. By the way, we live in a hotel and we have no place to live. It's like, no, I'm not giving the dog back. I'm sorry, but that's not happening. So truly, you are definitely not the jerk. And if anybody from the neighborhood has a problem with that, then I'm pretty sure you can show his vet records and be like, look, I've been taking care of this dog for 6 months. And then explain that these people left the dog in the back of the yard, presumably just to fend for itself. Because you are a much better pet owner than Mark and Julie could ever dream to be. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend applied for a $17,000 loan on my behalf, all because of the debt that he kept a secret from me from his illegal substance use. And now, as a result, I feel completely betrayed and incredibly angry. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. We've known each other since elementary school. We've always had a thing for each other, and our relationship is a pretty good love story. Unfortunately, the last year, I've started to notice a significant change on his part. He was always sleeping around, switching between jobs, drinking a lot, and doing substances, as well as not functioning as a man in the house. And basically, I was on my own for a lot of things, and there wasn't much zest for life with him. him. I asked multiple times what was wrong, and he always told me nothing, stating that it was his age, that he was turning 30, and he was just in a funk, and that he hadn't accomplished anything and was burnt out from work. And for reference, he worked in IT and as a DJ. Now, it had been a tough year, but we decided to get a dog who would bring us lots of love and joy into our lives. We were looking forward to it, and it was one of the things to get him on his feet for a bit. On the day when I had already signed the contract for the dog and was about to send it off, I got a call from the bank that someone had applied for a loan on my behalf for nearly £500,000. And for reference, that is about 17,000 US dollars. And someone did this who had access to my passport, my ID, and even sent them my bank statements. Now, the only one who has access to this is my boyfriend, who denied it until I totally folded and then confessed. He even opened an account with another bank and asked for more large sums there as well. But luckily, he didn't get away with any of it. Finally, he told me that he had been in a big debt for a year now, all because of the substances that he was taking. He said that he was afraid to tell me and thought that he would somehow work it out and that I wouldn't find out. Now, he didn't tell anyone, not even his friends. He misused my personal information without my permission, and he went into my phone at night and got my bank details. So at this point, I have no idea what to do. I canceled the dog, of course, but he was to be my future husband, and we were to be together for the rest of our lives. But now I don't even know what kind of person he is. I can't trust him. There is a lot of anger in me, and I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive this. What should I do? Honestly, this is so unforgivable. If I had a girlfriend who did this behind my back, all because of some debt that they had over illegal substances that they were taking, I would kick them to the curb. There's no way I would ever allow that to slide. This is a massive betrayal of trust, and he only did this not because he wanted to clear his debt, but in reality, he did this because he has an addiction. That is literally all that's going on right now. He tried to commit fraud at your expense, even going as far as stealing your information. And I don't know about you, but this is probably the biggest red flag anyone could ever ask for. So truly, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely leave this guy sooner than later. Because while you may think you have a relationship that's a pretty good love story, in my opinion, this is only going to end as a complete disaster. An entitled Karen gets angry with me after I refused to let her unload my groceries, as she was acting like the most impatient person on planet Earth. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened a few hours ago. I was in line to check out of the grocery store, and it was super busy, and they only had a few lanes open. The cashier was scanning the stuff from the person in front of me, and I was putting my groceries onto the belt as room became available. Now, the entitled Karen standing right behind me kept inching closer and closer, as if invading my personal space was gonna make everything go faster. I was down to 4 items left in my cart, and this entitled Karen grabs a bag of tortilla chips out of my cart and says to me, "I'm just gonna reach around from this side and help you." Now, keep in mind, I wasn't moving slow at all, and the woman in front of me was just now paying, so my stuff had not even started being scanned. I wasn't holding up the line at all, it was just busy. Well, this entitled Karen was just standing there holding my chips, and I think she was waiting for me to acknowledge or even thank her in some kind of way. So I took the chips from her and politely said, "No thank you. I prefer to do it all myself." And I then set the chips back down in my cart. So I grabbed my eggs, I put them on the belt, then my 2 bags of chips, and finally my bread, and then I put up the divider. And the whole time I did this, she glared at me as if I had just insulted her entire bloodline. So I went to bag my groceries, and at the store I go to, you bag your own stuff there, and it's set up so that 2 people can be bagging at the same time. Well, this entitled Karen walks up to start bagging her stuff up, and as soon as she's next to me, she is just loudly and aggressively humming to herself. Now, I had not planned on saying anything else to her, but the weird humming that she was making honestly made me want to. But instead, I just finished bagging my groceries and then I left, because this Karen was incredibly weird. Yeah, that lady was clearly trying to rush you ahead and had no patience about the situation. And for her to reach into your grocery cart and be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll help you out," that is super weird and super obnoxious. There's no reason to do that. But I just love the fact that you did not allow her to rush you or push you forward. You grabbed your stuff and said, "No thanks, I'm gonna do this myself." Because this lady was literally just trying to push you along and get you out of her way, as if she had some kind of weird entitlement over her time and just being in this line. So honestly, good for you for the way that you handled this, because I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have said something. My boyfriend does not have a job, and he has currently given in to all of his laziness and refuses to do anything to further any kind of career. And at this point, I'm seriously so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my 26-year-old boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. I'm a 20-year-old female, and when when we met, he had a job, but then he resigned 6 months afterwards because it is emotionally draining for him. For reference, he works 6 days a week on the morning shift. He lives paycheck to paycheck, and I would say that he's an irresponsible spender and is likely to spend his entire money without saving anything for emergencies. He currently lives with his sister and split the bills with her. His parents always urge him to give something to them since they need it for maintenance and stuff like that. So at the end of the month, there is nothing for him to save for himself. Throughout our relationship, he has been the one carrying our conversations daily. I am a pre-med student, so I would only respond from time to time depending on my schedule. I always tell him in advance that I would always be busy and all this other stuff. And since I can't reciprocate the quality time he's been giving me, I give back through gift giving like what he actually wants. So anyways, back to when he resigned. After that, he tried to apply again and pass his resume to numerous companies. Then one company interviewed him and he passed. The downside of his work, according to him, was that it is a project-based job and it just made him discouraged and lazy. During working hours, he would only play in the morning and then sleep at the afternoon. He was set up where he would work from home and actually pays above minimum wage. But then he lets his laziness get to him to the point that he's the only person who didn't get renewed. Plus, he keeps on filing leave due to personal reasons, or he just doesn't want to work. And that's when it all becomes hectic. Since most of the time he doesn't have any money, I mostly pay for our dates. And when he has money, he does pay. He took a 2-week break before he applied for a job again, but now it's been 2 months since his last job, and he still doesn't have any kind of employment. I already confronted him about these things, but it's just like he only realized that he's been a happy-go-lucky person and that he should establish a career for himself. My friends told me that it is pointless to carry a dead weight around because having 2 jobs in 1 year speaks volumes. I personally don't know what to do, and I don't know if leaving him would give him a wake-up call or it would just make him more miserable. What should I do? Okay, honestly, it really seems like your boyfriend is one giant red flag. He is 26 years old, and in my opinion, that is definitely the time to figure out what you want to do. Sure, there's always ambiguity to have some kind of change in your career plans, but to sit around and do nothing and just sleep in and be lazy, that cannot be an option. And in my opinion, that is not something that anybody should ever tolerate because he needs to work. He can't just sit around and do nothing. Even if it's a minimum wage job that he doesn't like, it's better than not working and damaging your resume. So hopefully this gets figured out, because if after 3 months he still doesn't have a job, then in my opinion, I would be questioning everything about this relationship. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving someone on red who contacted me after 5 years of being no contact? Because right now I find this all very difficult and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So many moons ago, I met someone and we instantly clicked as friends. And time went by and we ended up in a relationship. Well, eventually the relationship went south as my ex wanted to see other people but still keep me around just in case. Now I was in love, so I did this for a while until I realized that I deserve better. And it was definitely a moment where a big lesson was learned. When I made the decision to go no contact, it was very difficult. My ex didn't fully agree with doing this, but if I didn't, I would have been continuously used. So I went no contact, and the response was not good. I got followed pretty hard, and it went on for about a year. It really sucked too because I was just trying to start anew, and every time the ex would somehow make contact with me, whether she showed up at my work or was calling me from random numbers, etc., I had already been missing them a bunch, so I would cave, catch up, start to feel used again, and then repeat the process. And again, this was years ago, and we were much younger at the time. Now I know the evidence points to no contact being the best and healthiest option, and I know at the time it was. However, it felt like and still feels like going no contact was a pretty harsh thing to do. I essentially just shut this person who had loved and cared for me out of my life. There were days when I felt real grief over that, and it was super hard for a while. Anyways, on to the point, I ultimately let go of the situation about 4 years ago. It was an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. I had already been through quite a bit. I had relocated, I had matured, and so much more. I didn't really forget everything, but it's just something that doesn't really exist anymore. The whole situation and the ex is very irrelevant in my current life. However, recently the ex found me on a social media platform, which I wasn't on when I first started blocking. So yeah, getting contact about 5 years later was a shock. They happen to live somewhat nearby, which is crazy because I moved about 2,000 miles away, and asked if I wanted to catch up for coffee. While I have no interest in meeting up, it brought back a very familiar pain, which is the pain that comes from intentionally ignoring someone who at one point was my best friend. So would I be the jerk by not responding, I just find it kind of weird to purposefully not respond to someone instead of just being like, hey, I appreciate the invite, but this is not something that I'm comfortable with. I hope you're good though, and I wish you the best. I think I primarily want to respond in that way because it feels like I'm not dehumanizing them, which they had expressed in the past that is how no contact made them feel. So anyways, would I be the jerk? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you wouldn't be the jerk for choosing not to respond. That's how no contact works. You literally cut them off because they wanted you as a second option instead of a first option. You might as well have been a spare tire in the back of their car. And honestly, who wants to live a life like that? So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have done the exact same thing. My entitled old neighbors are angry with me because I keep parking my car on the street. Things got so bad that they literally went to my house and screamed at me just because my car was parked on the street, forcing me to call the police just to try and resolve this issue. Here's what happened. Okay, so my entitled old neighbor constantly bothers us about parking on the public neighborhood street. He thinks he owns the spot in front of his house and that the whole road actually belongs to him. A few months ago, I pulled up in the space between our driveways that he believes he owns just to run in and grab something that I needed in the house. This man then runs out and starts yelling at my girlfriend in the running car, saying that it's common courtesy to not park on the street in front of somebody else's house. He was screaming about how he's lived here since the neighborhood was built and all this other garbage. Now, I would have fully put him in his place right then, but I was in a hurry, so I just told him to get lost and that anyone can park here. And then I left. Fast forward to today, and it's garage pickup this morning. So to help the trash guys out in the cul-de-sac, I parked across the street. Well, literally not even 10 hours after pickup, a new entitled neighbor across the street and the one next door are waiting for me to come home and confront me and tell me not to park in front of their houses ever again. Now, at this point, I've had a pretty rough week and I was not in the mood. So I said we have nothing to talk about. I am parked here 100% legally and don't ever come tell me to move my car ever again. Well, they do not accept this and start yelling and name calling, so I gave it right back to them. I literally had to call the police to come educate these dumb idiots about how the roads work. And no, for the record, there is no homeowners association, there's no unincorporated county land, and the sheriff couldn't care less about parking and told them to leave us alone. And you know what? The next time either one of them talks to me, I'm filing a complaint like the sheriff told me to do. I hate these entitled people so much, and I seriously can't wait until the day that I don't have to deal with them any longer. Yeah, that sounds super obnoxious and really annoying to deal with. I can't imagine having neighbors constantly on my case about parking my car in the street. Like seriously, you're allowed to do that. You literally are breaking no rules, and these people are getting bent out of shape over nothing. But I do know if I was in your shoes, the second the cops showed up, I definitely would have filed a report right then and there. Like there's no way I'm gonna deal with that for a second, and I would have gotten that ball rolling like right away. So I guess you're better than me because these people have an awful attitude, and in my opinion, you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled old coworker tried to tell me that I didn't actually know what I was doing while I was attempting to fix a machine at the job we work at, resulting in me not only putting him in his place, but also showing him how stupid he truly was. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a garden center that a friend of mine owns. I'm also one of the unofficial managers and tech support. When we got new credit card machines, I help my friend set them up. So if one of them goes out to lunch and she isn't around, I'm the one who gets called up to fix it. And this story is about one of my old entitled coworkers who did exactly that on Saturday. I get paged up to the front of the store and told that the credit card machine is locked up. And I'm thinking to myself, no big deal, let's try a reset. Well, the machine wouldn't shut down, which meant that I had to unplug it and make sure the battery backup went dry. Well, some genius tore the flags off the cords, telling you which cord went to which device. And we had a lot of devices up front, namely a cash register, the phone, the router, the credit card machine, the receipt printer, as well as a few light items all plugged into the power strip. So I had to figure out which one belonged to the credit card machine. I finally found it and unplugged it, and my entitled coworker said, "You haven't even plugged it in yet. There's still a bunch of wires going to the black box mounted up there, and you need to unplug that too. That's why the machine isn't powering down." And he says this while pointing to something above my head. Well, I look up and it's the router. This guy wants me to unplug the router, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he then gives me the typical response of, well, I've been working here for years, but apparently I don't know anything, and you know more than I do. And he goes on and on. I told him that the router had nothing to do with the power to the machine, and I asked him to please leave the area. Well, he finally leaves while also still continuing to grumble. I get everything unplugged and I swap it out with the backup machine, and we're finally back in business. And as a side note, it took 24 hours for that stupid battery to finally dry out. Well, yesterday, this entitled old jerk and I were working together again, and he is still complaining about how dismissive I was of his advice. And it was then that I finally snapped. I said to him, you know what, you're right. You don't know everything. You wanted me to unplug the source of the internet signal. That has nothing to do with power. If I had unplugged the router, I could have destroyed that too, and we wouldn't be able to take the credit cards until we replaced it, since I don't know how old it is. Next time, don't offer any advice on things that you weren't there to see set up, and just leave the electronics alone. At the end of it, all he had to say was, oh, I was just trying to help. And seriously, these kind of attitudes are honestly the worst thing to deal with. Yeah, I can't understand when people who don't know what they're talking about try to chime in and act as if they know what they're talking about. This guy wanted to unplug the router. He was like, we need to unplug everything. It's the only way to get it to work. And it's like, dude, you seriously need to take a step back. And I'm so glad you told him to step away, because he literally would have made things so much worse. So good for you for putting this guy in his place, because sometimes people who act this way really do need to be told exactly why they're wrong. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.